Hi, this is Anil from Learning Lab with a video tutorial on C programming. So in this tutorial we're gonna see a function called memcmp, and we're gonna see what is the syntax of this function, and also how we can use that in our program. So this memcmp function is gonna compare the first count character specified here of two arrays passed as the pointer str1 and str2, and depending on that comparison it's gonna return a integer value. So if that value returned is less than 0, then it's gonna mean that the array pointed by this str1 is less than the array pointed by this str2, and if it is equal to 0, then it's gonna mean that the arrays pointed by str1 and str2 are equal. So if it's greater than 0, then str1 is greater than str2. Okay, and now we're gonna see how we can use this memcmp function in our program. So here, just for the demonstration purpose, we're gonna create some variables of type integers. So it's gonna be int. So the first variable we require is the length, the count of characters that we want this function to compare. So I'm gonna call it as length, and next we need the length of the arrays pointed by these pointers str1 and str2, and I'm gonna say length of str1 and length of str2. And the last variable we need is to store the return value from this memcmp function. So let me call it as result. Okay, next we need two arrays to compare. So I'm gonna create char str1, and okay, we're gonna specify the value later, and char str2. Okay, next what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the length of these two arrays. So it's gonna be length of string 1 equal to strlen. Now this function returns the length of a string or a character array. So if you guys don't know about it, please watch my video tutorial on it. So it's gonna be str1 here, and then length of s2 equal to strlen, that's a string length of this string 2. Okay, next we need to get the minimum length between this string 1 and string 2, or which string has the minimum length and that value. That's because when we compare two strings, so let's say we have two strings. One is called learning lad, learning space lad, which is of length 12, and another string is learning, which is of length 8. So when we talk about comparing these two strings, we can't compare the 12 characters in these two strings. We can only compare the 8 characters, because the string 2 has only 8 characters. That's why we need to pass this count as the length of the smallest string. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get that using ternary operator. So it's gonna be length equal to, okay, is the length of string 1 is less than the string 2. So it's gonna be length of s1 less than or equal to the length of s2. If it is so, then I'm gonna store the length of the array pointed by this str1 in the length variable. So it's gonna be len s1, else I'm gonna store the length of the array pointed by str2. So this line of code is gonna return the minimum length between the arrays pointed by this str1 and str2. So that value will be stored in this length variable. Okay, the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna call the memcmp function. So memcmp to compare the first n number of characters present in the arrays pointed by the pointers str1 and str2. So it's gonna be str1 comma str2, and next we need to specify how many characters to compare from the beginning. So in this case we want to compare all the characters, that's why it's gonna be length, which is nothing but the length of the smallest string. So this memcmp function is going to return our integer value, so we're going to store that in our result variable. So it's going to be result equal to memcmp with str1, str2 and length as a parameter. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to check that return value and print out the appropriate message. So for that purpose I'm going to use the if result contains a value of 0, then it's going to mean that the first length number of characters are equal. So we're going to say that using the printf function, first %d number of characters are equal in str1 and str2, and also we need to refer our length variable here. And then let's say this result is not equal to 0. So when it is less than 0, it's gonna mean that the array pointed by str1 is less than the array pointed by str2, and when it is greater than 0, it's gonna mean that the array pointed by str1 is greater than the array pointed by str2. And in the both cases, it's gonna mean that the arrays pointed by str1 and str2 are not have the characters common. So we're gonna say that I'm gonna use else and the printf function. Okay, I'm gonna copy this one because I'm a bit lazy now. Okay, paste it. First %d number of characters are not equal, so that's pretty cool, huh? Okay, now we're gonna store the string in this str1 and str2. So it's gonna be, so in our string 1 we're gonna store learning lad rocks, and let me copy this one and paste it in that str2 or the string 2 also. So now this both strings are containing the same characters, that's why this memcmp function is gonna return a value of 0, because this string 1 and string 2 is gonna contain same characters. So I'm gonna run this. So it says first 18 number of characters are equal in string 1 and string 2, because all these characters are equal. Okay, now I'm gonna close this one and change this to rock, only learning ladder rock in the string 1 and learning ladder rocks in string 2. So when I run this, it says first 70 number of characters are equal in string 1 and string 2. That's because this line of code here passed the length of the smallest string. So you can see here the string 1 has the length 17. That's why this memcmp function has compared the string 1 and string 2 for the first 17 characters. Okay, the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna change these characters. This function is case sensitive, that's why I'm gonna change this one to small l. So learning lad rocks, so these two strings are not equal for the 70 number of characters right now. So that's why if I run this, it says first 17 number of characters are not equal in string 1 and string 2. That's because since this is case sensitive, this small l is not equal to capital L. Okay, this is it. This is about the memcmp function. Thank you guys, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you guys have any doubt, don't hesitate to put a comment in that video. So I'll see you in the next tutorial, guys.